Hello, everyone. I'm Gemma Starr, and welcome to another episode of Heart Warriors. Heart Warriors is a series I've been guided and inspired to do thanks to my energetic connection with catapulted. Catapulted being our beautiful sacred masculine site in Central Australia, very close to Uluru, our sacred feminine site. So what I'm here to do is to give a platform to men so they can share their journey into the heart, their highs, their lows, tools, practices, insights, or wisdom. What has inspired them and motivated them on their journey to health and healing and abundance and happiness and peace and mission and authenticity that they can now share with the other men walking this path. And of course, us women who are walking right there beside them. Now, today's show is very special because it is a friend of mine here in Noosa, Australia, and his name is Luke Bourne. Now, Luke is a motivational speaker and facilitator for healing cancer. Luke is an emerging author who illustrates his philosophy of how to heal through sharing his gifts. He has experienced through healing himself from stage 4 sarcoma cancer, which apparently is the rarest cancer in the world. Luke's core message is of how you are your own medicine and how to access your limitless healing potential through the equation of embodying wholeness. So super excited to be chatting to Luke and hearing all about his journey into the heart. Enjoy. Luke Bourne, welcome to Heart Warriors. How are you today?
Oh, very well, thank you. Thanks very much for having me on your program and a part of what is such a great thing that you're doing for us men and the masculine.
Yeah, I'm so keen to get, your perspective on all of this. And I just want to say beforehand, I did say in my intro that we're friends. Your beautiful wife used to teach at where I do yoga and Pilates, and saw you there several times and at your home. And we did talk about this, or at least I spoke about it with Rachel, probably around the middle of me recording these 100 episodes. And I said to Rach, I just want to wait. I do want Luke. I said, I want him in the last 10. And I'm so glad I did, because I know you've got fantastic news to share with us all. So would you like to share that now at the beginning or at the end?
Oh, we can share now. So, essentially I've been stage 4 or had a terminal diagnosis for 8 years. My birthday's on Tuesday coming up, and that's essentially I turned 28 with the diagnosis of knowing that I had a golf ball sized tumor in my brain. So definitely 8 years and a significant moment, but after a lot of journey and soul searching and evolution, I had bloods come back last week to say that I was in remission. So, things that were never supposed to be possible, and achieving the impossible, and just absolutely over the moon and so excited about life and being here and the future and everything. So, yeah, really, really over the moon and about all of our hard work, both myself and my wife. It's been a real team effort to get there, and a lot of learning and just a lot of witnessing, like a really different perspective on life, and learning to embrace it, through all of the different lessons.
Oh, it's amazing. And we're going to get into, a lot of the details there, Luke, but I think it's a great to put that wonderful news out, and that'll keep the energy of the show high, and, for the viewers also to know that, everything is going well. Let's find out a little bit about you now, Luke. How would you describe the man you are inside?
Oh, I feel like after a long time that I am the man that I really setting out to be. I feel like I'm probably a man that's in service, and that's in service to myself firstly, and then my community, and then humanity, which is probably a long way from where I started 8 years ago. And I'm really proud to be the man that I am today, and certainly not a finished product, and there's no such thing as perfection in my books as far as achieving anything like that, but really embodying who I am, and really about experiencing life and practicing non-judgment on the world and everyone else, and freeing that up, allowing that to be myself, and really step forward through life.
Yeah, amazing. I love it. So let's go back to little Luke. I imagine he was healthy and running around. What was his major challenge before you stepped into all this in adulthood?
Yeah, little Luke. Oh, geez, I have such, like my I just light up thinking about little Luke, but a lot of, I've had to do a lot of work on inner child and that sort of thing, growing up and processing a lot of that stuff. And I think what my biggest challenge was with little Luke was probably always trying to play catch up. I had siblings that were 8, 10, and 12 years older than me retrospectively. And so they were always, setting the bar and me wanting to be an adult. And then when I started school at 4.5 years old, because my mum, she thought that I should go ahead with my schoolmates from kindergarten at the time. I was a year ahead. I got pushed through a year ahead of all of my schooling life. And I really felt like I was always playing catch up, trying to be, the maturity of that age group, even though it was only sort of 1 year, ahead and that sort of thing. I felt like I was always trying to, achieve what I, set to achieve. And I remember when I first got into my schooling year, my first year at school, and the principal sent me home with a note to my mum saying that I had reading difficulties and that sort of thing. And my mum sent me back the next day to the principal and said, it was actually with an Auto Trader magazine about, that thick. And she said, "You ask Luke any word in that book and he'll read it to you, no problem." It was just that I wasn't interested in that sort of stuff. So I had these from a sort of young age where I felt like I was getting conditioned, or I've seen that I wasn't smart enough or good enough or that sort of thing. But that was probably my challenge throughout my schooling and my, little Luke sort of thing. Very much with that. And the older siblings, I was always trying to mimic them and do that sort of stuff, which, takes me out of my own self. So, I'd say that's probably my biggest challenge is little Luke.
Yeah. So in retrospect, with, the journey you've gone through now, the past 8 years, how can you see that, how did growing up with that, playing catch up all the time help you in these later years? Can you see that, do you feel that you chose to be born into that situation for a reason? What advantages did it give you?
I think it really developed my insight. I think along with my mother always telling me that, I could do anything in this world, I think it really instilled that belief that I could, and I could more than keep up with anyone my own age or for that side of things, that it probably took the limitations off life a little bit, and I was able to, maybe go through a lot more of what I've gone through without the restrictions. And I think that there's always a bit of polarity in a lot of that sort of stuff. Like it did inhibit me a lot, but it did provide that opportunity to really strengthen me in a lot of different areas in life. I think, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love seeing how, it all falls into place in the long run, right?
Yeah.
What we might perceive as adversity is actually a strength when we need it. Okay, let's get into your adulthood. Now, you gave us a brief insight at the intro, and even though I know you could probably talk for hours about this, I don't want to make the whole show about your journey, because I'm really keen to find out about your perspectives about the masculine and also relationships, because you know what you and Rach have been through. But can you drop it down to your lowest point? What was happening at that point?
Oh, my lowest point. Oh, I think my lowest point was definitely my most significant turning point, and it happened just about 8 months ago, actually. A lot of, I thought maybe that the diagnosis might have been my lowest point, but my lowest point was sitting in front of my wife and and telling her through the honesty of my heart when I was in the deepest of pains with my tumor in my pancreas that was inoperable, and I had pain levels that were through the roof. We, on the verge of bankruptcy. We had no money. I had a treatment pathway, as I'd learned about, and I was writhing around in the bath, and I in pain, and Rachel was out working and supporting us and just trying to get me through the very bottom layer of treatment at the time. And I was working through very much letting go of my fear, shame, and guilt in my life. And earlier on in the journey of like a year into the cancer journey, I betrayed my wife. I cheated on her. And the hardest moment for me was not telling her, because that was the right thing to do. It was always the right thing to do. It was very much sitting in front of her as a man, as a human, and just being there for her. And the pain that she expressed was the hardest pain for me to ever feel, to ever go through, to ever sit in that space. And none of like what I did was for me in that moment. It was for her. And like if it was about being honest in life, and wherever life led from there, like I was, I would have been done without her. And it was definitely owning my own stuff as well at that same time, and the shadow side of my old self, and very much just being in that pain and owning up and sitting in front of the person that I love the most in my life, and really just being there for her in every which way that I could, not just as a husband or a partner in a relationship, but as a as a good human being would do for anyone else. And like that's just the core of how I see life, and that was by far the hardest thing that I've ever had to do, through all my surgeries and brain surgery and all the rest of the stuff, the physical pain that I went through. That was by far the toughest thing that I ever went through. So apology, I shouldn't apologize for tearing up, but that's, it's part of my masculine self that I've been able to work into and really embody, because, our lives are made to water and detox. And so that I express my emotions quite freely now as a man, and I'm, proud to do so. So yeah, that was my toughest time in life, and that was, a massive turning point for me and for her, and for my health as well, and even more growth and perspective of what we're, what might be our purpose here and on this planet, and what I would like to do and contribute, and how I show up as myself in this world. So
thank you, Luke. Thank you. Now, this is amazing because it's not what I expected, only in the fact I thought we were going to talk about the lowest point of your illness. But I'm really interested now. I just wanted to clarify, if I may, and I know it's hard because I know you, so I don't want to, seem as if I'm prying, but was you say, admitting to infidelity something you'd been carrying for all these years? Did it happen like 8 years ago? I'm just trying to know if that was when you spoke about shame and guilt, was that what you were holding on to, and then you finally brought it out in the open?
Yeah, I was facing all my fears. Last year, for an example, like I was 140 plus kilos when I first started this journey, and I, down to 70 kilos of, half my human self. And part of that is like I get shock and cold, like I have a fear of the cold. And so last year, before this happened, I went down to the Noosa main beach in the middle of winter and stripped down into my budgie smugglers, and proceeded to go and do cold water swims. And I, it was breaking that fear and conditioning myself. So I was really trying to, as far as my knowledge went on the biology of my body, that, I was trying to release whatever I could release in order to my body to function better, whether it's my immune system, my gut, like my central nervous system. And fear, shame, and guilt is a frequency that, like if every human being on this planet let go of, we would just live in a whole totally different space, and Mother Nature would absolutely be thriving again. But this was definitely something that I'd carried since being a heart warrior is for the masculine. And I think that the incident happened in 2016, and truth be told, that I've never ever had eyes for another woman or anything like that. And I was at my very sickest. I went over with my brothers on a male trip, as far as ticking off stuff in a bucket list, and it was to see the Formula One cars, racing cars. And I had actually pretty much collapsed during the day through heat exhaustion and dehydration. And I went to the medical tent there at the racetrack and stuff. And essentially later that afternoon, we got back to the hotel. Everyone was swimming around the pool because it was so hot in Malaysia. And they were all drinking cocktails. So I decided to have one cocktail, and I hadn't drunk since for ages because I had brain surgery and seizures and stuff. And so, I shouldn't have been doing that. My brother was, supposed to be looking after me and that sort of thing. And, I don't even remember it. And part of my thing was that I was actually had a bit of erectile dysfunction as well. So I showed up, and I didn't really essentially cheat on her, but I followed through, and I had to own that options. And I ended up at a brothel, my brother and my cousin, and details are details, but it got a bit blurry, and I had to own my stuff, and that I was actually, I betrayed my wife, and later on down the track, like last year when I was processing the stuff, it was really about learning about the conditioning I had as a male, and my lack of role models that I had growing up, as far as that my brothers and my father that were there, who were supposed to be looking after me, and I was out of control, drunk, should have taken care of me, and should have, really pulled me aside and pulled me into line, and, that side of things. And I don't blame them. It was just about me learning from and observing what, like toxic masculinity is in one form, where, the right thing to do is the one that should always be done. We shouldn't be afraid to speak up or to share, or to, especially like family, for instance. We should really be able to do what's right and do what's honorable, and really stick to your values and that side of things. And so, not carrying that shame, guilt, and that sort of stuff, that was, that wasn't like, and I spoke to my brother about it. Wasn't his fault or anything like that. I took full ownership of everything, and it was really about providing me an opportunity on where to grow and who I was as a man, and that, in my right state, that no way that ever would have happened. And, I didn't want that to happen, but it turned out, and it did happen, and I was able to grow and evolve. My relationship there has never been the same, in a better way. I was able to actually free my wife, because she, we're two wholes that come together to support each other and create and co-create together. And that at any time we're free human beings, and we both can leave the relationship at any time. So, things have never been better in that circumstance, but it really gave an opportunity to observe and witness different aspects of my programming or conditioning as a child and growing up, and what society deems as, manly and masculine, and, the right and wrongs of that, and how you actually show up into the world, and, how you communicate with relationships about people you love, like even best friends of mine, and like males and that sort of thing, and in circles like that. So yeah, it was definitely something that I'd been carrying, and with the terminal diagnosis, and thinking that I was going to die, and all arrows are pointing to that way, and that sort of thing, and thinking that I may pass away, and Rachel never get to know the truth, and like, that's just not what she deserves as a human being, as a soul, as someone who's kept me alive for a long time, and really helped me breathe and learn, and taught me what love is, and she deserved more than that. And so it wasn't actually me letting go of that stuff. It was, it came through the authenticity of doing it for her. And, if I did pass away, then she always knew what happened. And, that karmic debt was, in truth and space for however it was supposed to play out in the world.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing, Luke. Luke, I'd like you to talk to men now directly, because I'm sure, let's talk about men. All men have got something deep down inside that, they're still hanging on to shame and guilt or regret about. And, as you said, you did it to honor your wife, your beautiful wife. And at the same time, I imagine it was a weight lifted off your shoulders that you'd done it and you were willing to face the consequences. Can you please talk to men? Are you suggesting, like, are you going to say that all men should, like, do something similar? Or what do you say to men who are hanging on to guilt and shame?
I think um, I think mindfulness is always key in this, in this place. So it's at the core of how I live life. But I think that when I would share and talk to other men, I'd really just like to give them permission to release their own shame and guilt and fear of the future. The shame and guilt is of your past and what's gone on, essentially. And so they are old stories that you can release. And what happens when you release those stuff, it frees you to be more of the person of who you are as a soul and as a human, and how you show up in this world. And it's a different frequency and it's a different vibration that runs through your body. That's definitely not a healthy vibration. And that when you do start working through this, or you have deep dark secrets, and you don't, there's lots of people out there that really want to listen and want to, you just be amazed at what's on the other side of that. It's, if you can sometimes just give yourself that freedom to know that on the other side the grass is greener, from releasing that shame and guilt. And I was thinking about my wife says that that Rumi poem, up beyond right and wrong, I'll meet you there. And that's essentially, that's where I got to. And I think that for other men, it's not emasculating or anything to do with that. It's about releasing everyone else, or anyone else's programming, conditioning, society, mum and dad, brother or sister, best mate, all of that sort of stuff, to be able to free yourself to be more of who you are as a human being.
Amazing. Thank you. Now, you said this was the turning point. Now, you've been, the past 8 years, you've been through a lot of different health trials, trying so many treatments and, like health methods and incorporating things into your lifestyle. But this was the turning point. So this is fascinating to me. So in what way, take us, once you got through that, how was it the turning point, and how did life start spiraling up from there?
It very much opened myself to a wider vision and a wider scope of what was real for me. And it started off, as a when I got diagnosed, as a man that just would listened to the doctors, and what they said was absolute. But all of the learnings that have gone on, and I was very much a science-based guy that really needed to know evidence and books and that sort of things, and to really witness what went on in my body, and how I had somatic experiences, like from writhing around in the bath, and my body, actually I'm able to tune in and feel what's going on inside my body. And it allowed me to really believe more in that aspect of myself, the emotional and core beliefs side of what was actually driving my body. And really my understanding of my guru doctor who's really taken me along with this, he talks about 80% of the healing from cancer actually being the software of the body. So not the actual hard, the conventional side is only 20% of the treatment, but the emotions and the core beliefs of who I am as a body actually have direct reflection throughout my biology. And so what that led to from there on out was learning more about myself and what my core beliefs were. So, me not being able to put boundaries in, I learned about that through different family members, and I was going from having massive pain in the areas of my tumors to going completely pain-free, the next day. They were still there and what have you, but I was able to actually get the disease at a stable disease just through my emotional state. And stress is the number one feeder of cancer. Everyone thinks sugar is. Sugar is number two, but stress is the number one feeder of of cancer, just through the chemical reactions that happen and the networks that the PNI, the brain, works through the system. So it was really about releasing so much of the stress from my body, especially from that moment that I shared before, and then being able to, what that does is it gives a lot of more space in my room and in my life to be able to welcome in positive frequencies and work on more of the positive of life and create that moving forward. So it certainly changed from there on out, and we're able to raise the money and welcome in that side of things to go through and get that 20% done down at my clinic. So it was a massive turning point for me, and it wasn't whether I lived or died either. That wasn't the outcome. It was how I was able to show up every day and feel so much lighter within myself, because I've been able to release so much of what was weighing me down from being myself. So
I'm fascinated with these core beliefs and the relation to disease, because I'm a big advocate for any disease in the body being a result of the emotional body, which is a result of the mental body, and manifests in the physical body, as through Rachel. So let's look at these core beliefs. So you said boundaries was an important one. Can you name any others that you were hanging on to as core beliefs that you've now fundamentally changed and felt a healthier emotional state from?
Yeah, I'll name through a couple. There was actually quite a few that, that's Rachel's definitely speciality, and we did a lot of treatments, or not treatments, but on the table work and that side of things. So I'll give you two for starters. So there's people I love abandon me, and it's not safe to be me. So they're just a couple of so through my life, as I spoke about my siblings growing up, they were my mum had postnatal depression earlier on when she had me, and so my siblings became my parents for a couple of years, parents per se. And when they obviously grew up a lot, 8, 10, 12 years. So when I was still relatively young, they left the coop, and so I had feelings like that happen. And then later on, when I was 15, my parents decided that they were coming to Australia and I didn't, so they actually up and left me in New Zealand, and I found a family to live with and went to school over there. And so that was one of them. And then actually one of it decided that we come to realize that that was one of the drivers of I think subconsciously what happened to me in Malaysia was that I was sort of wanting or going through the pattern of the people I love abandoned me. So, what happened through Rachel, I thought, she was going to abandon me as well. And I had that fear. And yeah, so that was, one example of that side of things and the core beliefs that, especially from the ages of up till 7 years old, where the brain's not thinking for itself. I had a lot of input, I should say, because I had siblings that were looking after me that weren't adults either. So I was very much taking on a lot of that sort of core beliefs, and that's how I was seeing stuff. It's no one's fault. It's only a perception of myself. So I place no blame on anyone else. That was, just instances on how I was, like the work that I was doing to come to realize that, and then work through that and re-imprint what I wanted, and who I am in life, and, that it is safe to be me, and that I'm not trying to be anyone else, and that side of things. So yeah, I think
very good, isn't it, to do that shadow work and see the health results on the other side. Amazing, the connection between, as we said, the emotional and the mental body.
Yeah, absolutely. And it all cycled back to that, as much as I was trying to go through and make changes to my health and lifestyle through, even food and nutrition, that, like having a strong mental state was, key to doing that. But what broke the mental state at times was the emotional health. And, that would override the mental health, that would then trickle down into the nutrition and trying to keep life like that. So at the end of the day, it was a natural process for my learning and evolution to actually have to come back and address those core beliefs. And, that's part of, unfortunately, part of my conditioning growing up, that I needed to know science and what was actually in, part of my senses of what I could actually feel, touch, smell in real life. But, I didn't believe to be true in the emotional or mental state. It started off where I thought it was just a bunch of bogus sort of thing. But no, when I learned some of the lessons the hard way, that's for sure. But very much is very real in the process of healing and coming into your body. So
good. Luke, I'd like to talk about death. Now, you've had a lot of time to think about death. You've been close for years, on and off. What's your perception? Did you find peace with the possibility that you might die young? How did it play out for you, that story?
Yeah, death was a really interesting one, and I'll probably start reverse. I'd say that now I sit with death at my table, well, have done for quite a few years, so that it becomes part of the decision-making process in my life. And that comes from a place of not fearing it, letting go of the fear of death. And so it became a actually healthier point of view to have it sitting as part of what I had in a decision-making state. And I did a lot of work. I had one of my friends and holistic doctors, would go in for look at kinesiology and testing on supplements and nutrients and stuff like that. But would sit down, and we ended up looking at my fear of death and working through that. I got given a prognosis of likelihood of weeks to live, if not months at best. And so, I was making a lot of decisions, like especially at the start of my journey, about not wanting to go away from my family or leave anyone, because I was in this deep-seated fear of death. And I really had to learn and really go to the other side of what death might be as a possibility, as an outcome. And I actually took a lot of I read a few books and stuff like that on cancer patients and near-death experiences, and I've then gone on to listen to quite a few doctors in palliative care, and how, even in the last moments of their life, they're not, people and loved ones would come in to see them, and they're not going, hey, you did this and this in your life. It's all about love. And, it's all about expressing and having that connection and knowing and feeling the beauty in life. And there's been a few people that have, few doctors that have definitely brought people back. I think there's only generally, when people go into cardiac arrest or something like that, that there's only 6% roughly of people that actually come back. And one of my favorite doctors, Zach Bush, he had an instance where there was 3 different, people that happened to in one night, that they came back, and they all said the same thing. And that was that, why did you bring me back? And they said that for the very first time in their lives, they felt that they weren't alone and that they were connected. And that was them crossing over to the other side. And that was part of some of the work that I did with my holistic doctor, and about not fearing what was on the other side of death, of life, when we leave this body. And that, that it was okay, and that it was, that it was beautiful. And that more importantly, coming back to that mindfulness that freed me up to be mindful, to be here as in person and in this observer state of the world, and not so much in the doing mode, but in the being mode here in the present. And that's why I sit with death at my table, so that it's not a negative thing. It's a thing that I do so that I don't fear time running out. And that was also the other aspect or practice that I took into life, was that I removed time from my life. So it was a big one to sort of get my head around, but I took time out. So I wasn't stressed about being, because I was like one of those people that would show up for work an hour early or 45 minutes early, just to make sure that I was on time, and I was all of this stuff. But there was so much stress and pressure that came from time and going and being at an appointment on time and that sort of thing. It was a real big lesson, and part of my path, obviously. And death is something that we get a lot of perception thrown at us in society on how it should be and what it should look like, and forgetting that we're trusting, and that it's absolutely magical that we're here as humans right here, right now, and getting to experience life as we do. And I think that, having that fear can really blur and distort, the reality that you live in. So it was something, it was really beneficial for me to really release that fear, or the fear that I had about death, and accept how life is. and whatever may come in the future, you know, like it's not something that I know of, but I don't need to worry about that either.
Yeah, so good, Luke. And of course, I'm fascinated about this, stepping out of time, because it's a concept that, many of us sort of in the, awakening community are aware of. But how do you actually do it? How does Luke Bourne actually let go of time and step away from it? What advice can you give to people that think, oh, yeah, that's a cool concept, but how do you do it?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, like, you go away on holiday and the first thing you should do is take your watch off and shut your phone down and put time on the back foot so that you're just there in the moment so you can enjoy your holiday. And I think that, very much translate into the way that you can do life. You can put, there's so much pressure on everyday life for everyone. It's whether it's kids growing up or everyday activities and getting them to training on time or school on time, or it's I suppose it's very much a practice, like it's not something that you can just flip the switch and say, hey, that's not a what's name, but releasing that time from your mental state really decreases, or I felt like it really decreased the stress in my life. So I think that there's, if you have enough, trust and belief in that everything is how it's supposed to be, that, time is just a man-made object, and that how we perceive it comes down to the individual. And yeah, it's a tough one on strategies on how to do it. I think, like I meditate. I try to meditate every day, twice a day I try to, but I'm not able to execute that all the time, but it really brings me back into my body and, releases, brings me back into the present. So I'm not, in the past or in the future. And that's part of that shame, guilt, and fear, because you've got fear of the future and you've got shame and guilt of the past. And, essentially it's taking you out of the now, and your mind goes into time, past and future. So I think that was probably another massive contributor that went hand in hand with me sort of releasing time as best as I could. Obviously there's things in life that I'd like to achieve, and the modern day world is the rat race sort of thing is quite time poor, as far as we've got to this point in humanity with capitalism and economic growth, sustainable economic growth, that our bodies are breaking down, so that we, very much have stress from that time, and the perception that we don't have enough of it. So yeah, that was a difficult question, actually. I hope I did a little bit in answering that one for you.
You did great, Luke. And of course, these 5D sort of metaphysical concepts, it's hard to put into, our limited vocabulary. So you did a great job. Thank you. And of course, it's through experience that we come to understand it. Now, I'm fascinated with what you said about your core message, Luke. You said your medicine, hang on, sorry. Luke's core message is of how you are your medicine and how to access your limitless healing potential through the equation of embodying wholeness. So let's expand on this. Your journey into, I guess, trying to embody the best health that you can. Where did it take you? How did you arrive at where you are today on your journey? And what are the most important elements?
Well, cancer's really it's really been the where it's led me to is my philosophy on cancer, and it's come from a wide learning of experience as far as what I've been through in the past 8 years, but also to the knowledge that I've sucked in from a lot of other people that know a lot about cancer. And my understanding is very much a metaphor for humanity as well, and an individual. So I think that cancer is really just a form of disconnection. I think that what happens to a cancer cell at a micro scale is that it separates from the body, and our own innate immune system doesn't recognize it to tag it and kill it, because we all have cancer cells in our body, and it's what our immune system does. It comes through and tags it and say that's a bad cell and what have you. But the cancer cell actually becomes separate from ourselves, and it's not a foreign cell, it's our cell in our body. And we created that's in our cell. So this separation in ourselves, it's like I initially wanted to go to war on my cancer, like what everyone else does, and kill it and do all of this sort of stuff. But what I've come to realize is that in order for me to heal from my cancer, I've had to reconnect with it. And so I need my immune system to come through and recognize and tag it and say, hey, you're not serving this, or you're served its purpose. You're not serving this body and vessel anymore. I need you to leave before you take both of us out. And very much, like you can go to the macro scale on that, where humanity, and you look at nature in a dictionary, and it says the birds, the bees, the grass, the planet, everything but humanity, humans, and what man-made stuff is. But like the beautiful indigenous culture here really embraces that there is no separation, and that we are nature. Where this planet wasn't made for us, and that what we're doing to this planet is coming from a separation from nature, and that we are two separate beings, and that we are a cancer to this planet in the form that we are really killing Mother Nature. We're on this pathway to, and what happens is there is always a polarity with that. We have all the CO2 in the air, but that's what plants live and breathe off, and that provides us with oxygen and stuff like that. So we have all this potential for beautiful life on this planet if we were able to actually see it. And so I've used this philosophy from the macro through to the micro, and so all I try to do now is embody and reconnect. And so through that process, I've really worked through my mental, and still continue, because I don't know that there's actually an end goal, so to speak. There's no actual. So I'm always working and always evolving, but I'm always trying to reconnect and become as whole as a human being, from the cell down to my whole body, as much as possible, so that I can be my best self and I can live to my full potential, and give my every organ in my body the best opportunity to make me as well, and to feel and sense the magic from within, and the magic that is out there, and that we are all not separate. We are all one and all together. So I think that's been a real embodiment practice of that philosophy, and how I actually choose to go ahead and try and live my life that way. And so I've just experienced so much beauty in this world, and so much love, and just it's completely changed my life from the 140 kilo miner that used to sit on a dozer and rape and pillage this earth. And when I, that was my toxic life before cancer showed up to really shake me into seeing just how disconnected I'd come from not just myself and my toxic body that I was in, but how I was showing up in this world as well, and what I was doing. So, like, it was this full switch, and the way that I seen the world and the way that I experience the world now, and how I feel about it as well. So I really, Victor Schulberger was probably one of my favorite scientists. He was a genius that loved trout, and he's nicknamed the Nicholas Tesla of water. But he once said that if you turn the world 180 degrees, you'll see the truth. And that's what I feel like my life's been. And, I've been really able to become more in touch with my body and reconnect. And I don't know if there's ever you can become whole, but, like, heading in that direction and trying to be that as much as possible is certainly how I go about life now, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, obviously, you're doing something right, so keep going in that direction. Okay, there's other things I need to cover, and we're already an hour into the show, so I want to talk about masculinity. Luke, you've been, now I say you look amazing, but I've seen you, well, through photos on Facebook, and, when I last saw you a couple of years ago, you were looking a lot weaker. And how does that affect your identity as a man, your like what masculinity means to you? What's the journey been for you these past, say, 10 years?
Yeah, well, that's a beautiful question. I when I was 17 or 18, I was actually a New Zealand hammer and discus thrower. I've been 120 plus kilos from the age of 15. So I've always been a big man, so to think. And, I would have held records at a lot of NRL clubs for, lifting weights in the gym and that sort of thing. So I played a lot of sport, was very good at sport. And then as I got sick, or I got diagnosed, and I went through my first clinical trial, actually. I weighed in at 132 kilos officially on the trial, and one of the side effects was anorexia, and Rach and I sort of laughed at the side effect, at that sort of thing. But 18 months later, I was 65 kilos, and I transitioned from being this man who could pick fridges up and carry them up the stairs, and moving houses and that sort of thing, to a man that my wife had to carry the groceries in from the car because I didn't have the strength to do that. And so there's a real aspect of humility that I went through, and a real perception change on what it means to be a man, from a physical state. And it was really humbling of sorts when, a lot of the perceived testosterone and the stereotypical male tendencies of, how we have to be as a man to show up in this world, to support our wife, or to turn up on a footy field, or whatever it is. I really had to do a lot of work, and I had some tough times around that. Body image was a massive one. And I've had other problems with my health too. I've had incontinence, so I've had to wear adult nappies and stuff around, and even again erectile dysfunction. So they say 90% of your brain time gets taken up by money and sex, like in society. And so when stuff like that gets removed, it really gives you this perception of what different aspects of life means to you, and what for me is my embodiment of the masculine is to support the love of the feminine, and to co-create with it as as the last indigenous tribe to be discovered in the Amazon. Their philosophy is they actually called in humans to find them in the deforestation and through the dreaming, like of what a lot of many of the indigenous cultures do in their beautiful knowledge of being connected, that the bird of humanity was not flying straight, and that that the masculine and feminine that was flying around in circles because one wing was clipped. And I think that and that was the feminine wing, and that would suppress them for so long. And I think part of that is very much the toxic masculinity that's gone on and really built the last 100, taken over in this last 100 years. And I think a lot of the masculine in this world is about outcomes, whereas the feminine is very much on the process of doing things. And I think that's where I find the real beauty in the feminine of their process of love has, and what I've been able to be privy to be witness to and be on the receiving end from, is how I've been loved at every moment of my masculinity changes. And so it's really embodied and given, or it's really empowered me to be able to share and speak freely about how I perceive masculinity. And it's not just in the physical sense of big muscles and sexual pleasure and all the rest, like of the traditional stereotypes, but very much more in the supporting around, from being heart-based on me as a man and other men in that space. So it's definitely had its challenges, and facing a lot of them, like so a lot of them just part of the process of me and healing and going through this journey. But really being able to have that mindfulness when my beautiful wife sent me along to the mindfulness coaching course. I just thought I was going to learn about mindfulness, not actually become a qualified coach. But I turned up just there for me, and really just breaking down some of those boundaries, like going to yoga and stuff like that. We see how little men that there are in yoga, that it's becoming more popular, but there's a real balance. I enjoyed Bikram. That was my favorite style, and I really like the balance of having a female leader take me through Bikram, and then having a male leader take me through it. And I enjoyed both of them, and you really got to witness the balance and being guided by both the male and the female side of things, and how what they both brought. And I didn't perceive one to be better or worse. It was just that they both guided me and gave me strength to be who I was throughout. It was the same thing. It just got delivered different ways. I think that there's a lot of room for us to really embody our own selves as in the masculine as men, and there's that real potential at the moment with the way that society is to really expose some of the not so healthy traits, and then the potential to bring bring out in us to support one another and fly straight with the wings of the masculine and feminine on the bird. So
I love that. I love the bird with the wings flying straight. Luke, can you please talk to men who are going through either a temporary or a perceived permanent restriction in their physical abilities as a man? Can you speak to them, and what would you say to those men who are not able to maybe do the physical aspect of masculinity as much as they would like to?
I think that I would speak to them like as really to go inside, is take an opportunity to look inside, because there's an answer for everything in here, in the heart. And what there's always polarity in this life, and so where there's one thing that might be taken away, something else comes in. And so that physical trait may be just an opening of potential to go into a mental and emotional. I think Stephen Hawking was probably one of, he had motor neuron, and he was an absolute genius that, discovered a lot on black holes. And so there is absolute potential in life to do anything. And I think that when we have limitations placed on us, or they come about in whatever way or form, that there's absolutely potential to see it as a gift. And that's an extremely challenging thing to do when you're in your head and really stuck on the limitation side of things. But if you look inside, your body will tell you through your heart and your head eventually that there is greatness to be had in everyone. And we don't have to get stuck on what everyone else thinks and the perceptions and the conditioning of your environment or your community or society. But there is absolutely always beauty to be had and seen in this world. And very much so, like connection is a massive part of what I think we are designed to do. I think that's why we have our senses. And so, connecting with other people who might be in your position, or connecting with someone who might have been through that or might know more about that. We live in such this world with massive potential, and that's in each and every one of us. So I think that would be my message, to go within and be truthful and honest to yourself, and then really try to establish connection with your environment and community.
Yeah, love it. Great message. Thanks, Luke. Right, let's talk about relationships. So you guys, how long have you been married now?
10 years. We had our 10-year anniversary in February this year.
Yep, congratulations. Now, many marriages don't even last 10 years, never mind what you guys have been through. And I'm not just talking about 8 months ago, I'm talking about just with the whole, your health journey. What are your top 3 tips for a strong marriage?
Strong marriage, yeah.
Strong, loving, however whatever.
Yeah, no, that's that bond. I think very much. I think honesty is a big part, and that's, as much as I've said, honesty with yourself first, and then that will flow out into your relationship. I think that involves, that the flow and effect from that is trust. I think very much being free in your relationship. I think that there's always that you're not bound together by a marriage certificate or anything, that you choose to be there for each other each and every single moment and every day when you can. Obviously, life is life, and not everything plays out the way that you would like it to, but if you have that option and you choose to be there, then it helps to co-create and really support one another in that way. Like I think that's the important part of being two whole individuals, very much becoming one as a unit, that you're actually adding to each other's lives, not just going through the motions and stuff like that. So very much in that way. And three, it's hard. I don't know, 10 years of marriage, it doesn't seem like that long, but it has been that. We're only 2 years or 2.5 years into our marriage when I got diagnosed. So yeah, I'm not sure about the third one. I think probably having a good definition of what love is. I think my definition of love would be that love is witnessing the beauty. Love is receiving the beauty that someone witnesses inside of you. So that's the frequency that you get back when someone sees the real beauty inside of you, and that's that love frequency. And I think you can have that for the plants, the trees, and every individual. But I think really coming back to that beauty of yourself, and that innate heart wisdom that just vibrates through life, and that vibrates through the relationship as well. Because there's we're obviously unique individuals, in that we are sovereign to ourselves, and that not everything is always going to be listened or heard to appropriately or anything like that. But having that core fundamental of why you choose to be there with each other, it's paramount, I think, for me. Yeah. I don't know if that was still 2 or 3 or whatever.
That's fine. Thank you. Thank you. So I want to open it up now, Luke. As I said, there's so many aspects of your story that I'm not aware of. But what is important for you to bring into this conversation? Your episode of Heart Warriors. What needs to be said around men, masculinity, the healing journey? What haven't we covered that you don't want to leave out?
Yeah, I think it's about being happy in the moment. Like I had that prognosis of weeks to months to live, and the removing fear of death from a big part of my vision was the ability to find happiness in as many moments of life that I can. I can't say that I find it in everyone, because in every moment, because life can be challenging and I think everybody understands that. But working through it to be able to find and keep evolving, to know that you are your own happiness, and that, you know, whether you've got $2 in the bank or $2 billion in the bank, you know, it's about being happy and witnessing beauty and trying to be as authentic to yourself as you can. And there's like this whole synergy that works with life like that. And I think, you know, the more I learn about the indigenous tribes around the world that have been here for such a long time, that have, you know, this absolute polarity of vision to us sort of colonized societies, that, you know, that we are all connected, and, you know, we're not separate from this beautiful Mother Earth that we live on. And you know, that perception has really led me to experience such joy and wonder in this life. And, you know, I've read it in so many books, you know, like Eckhart Tolle and The Power of Now, and how he spent 4 years on the streets witnessing, you know, the good and bad of humanity, and really being able to change his perspective. And I think, you know, like when you're able to see the light in the dark and experience as much as that, and practice that non-judging, and you know, it really can elevate yourself in life, as far as how you feel and how you go about things, how you embrace relationships and embrace, you know, the food that you put in your body, and, you know, like the concepts that you know, you once might not be open to, and now might, you know, be in more alignment or synergy with, you know, like try not to get stuck or held up on one thing, and really experience as much of what's on offer, because there's a lot more on offer than I think that we all sort of realize, and we can be a little bit closed off to at times, just through, you know, whatever however life has played out for an individual. Yeah, I must say that I've gone from having you know, I got paid out my life insurance and spent my life insurance on bucket list stuff. And
how many years ago?
Yeah, that happened. Yeah, 5 or 6 years ago, and you know, it's this weird concept that was very foreign to me at the start, but has turned into this beautiful life lesson on, you know, that there's so much more to life out there than what I once thought there was. And you know, I'm only 35 years old. And I say only 35, but I feel like I've got so much more life to live and experience and to learn from. You know, I feel like I'm just this sole individual that goes around, and just there's this infinite wisdom out there that I just want to continue to tap into and experience and receive, and, you know, be a part of, and then also contribute to. You know, I think that, you know, going forward, it's been a big part in my turning around as a human being, where I've really gone from quite a selfish sort of, not really caring too much about the earth or many other people, you know, like. And I think a big part of what helped me through that was back in 2018, I was a footy coach for under 13s and my nephew team, and, you know, really getting to, I'm not a parent myself. We had Rachel had 4 miscarriages before I got diagnosed, and we've not been able to have a biological family since. But you know, I really got to embody and embrace children for their free spirit and the lack of limitations on how they see the world. And there's such awe and awe and wonder of how they went and lived life at that age. And I remember what it was like when I was a boy, and, you know, getting to show up and sort of being a role model and a more of a authentic person, and that place really taught me so much about life. And it's, I've had these wonderful journeys and experiences through coming from the space where I've had, this prognosis hanging over me, and this sickness or this disconnection in my body that I've had to try and work through, to really just be here and be grateful and be thankful for what that I'm here and how magic life is. And yeah.
Amazing. Let's talk about, you said that you enjoyed and you'd always embodied being of service to others. So now let's look at your beautiful, bright future. What's Luke's mission? How's that going to play out? Where are you going to take this this last 10 years that you've been through and put it in service to others?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I've back in 2021, I started writing a book on sharing my story. It was sort of getting a bit out of hand how extraordinary this journey had become. So, I thought it was really in service to write the journey and share my perspective and philosophy of cancer. And if I could connect and help anyone else going through a journey of some sort, and how that might be. And that's really been transformational for me, just writing that book, and just, actually getting to go through and reflect on the journey, again, was such a healthy part of that. But it also freed me and connected me at the same time to be able to be with myself, but on what I wanted to do and how I wanted to show up, and I've gone on to become quite educated on nutrition and the body, and how, I don't really go through science and see it through as germ theory anymore. I have a philosophy of nutrition on live dirty and eat clean. I'm massive on the microbiome of our body and the gut, and that actually is not just the food that you put in your mouth. It's the connection that you have when you're doing it, the smells and the pleasures of cooking it, the place that you get it from, the farming and the organic side of things, to really go through and be educated on the body, but also have that direct connection with that embodiment on how I've been able to achieve remission. And a big part of that is, not just the food, but the perception of how that gets put in. So Rach and I definitely want to hold, as she's very much the professional side of things, on the emotional and mental health side of things, the energy psychology. So we believe that we balance each other out and create such a good picture of embodiment for a pathway for people to travel down if they choose to, in the future, because I believe this is the future of medicine, and how we move forward through the connection to ourselves, and that is, through the pleasure of what we eat and that sort of thing. So we would like to open a retreat or a place where people can come and stay and really embody the whole concept of things in an environment that's inclusive to do so. So getting away from the blue lights and having the EMFs and the mitochondrial health and the breathing in your biome, the beautiful nature, And like I was born on a farm, and ironically, I circled back round. I didn't think I'd ever want to be a farmer, but by Jingoes, I just want to live on the land and contribute to the land as I contribute to my community, as I contribute to society, and that's really my feeling of myself and my of what I want to do. Because when we got the news of the blood say that you don't have to come back for treatment anymore or any of that, you're in remission, it was like the world is your oyster, and the limitations have been taken off, and what do you want to do in life? And that's absolutely fills my heart with joy and what I really want to do. And I want to show up for not just myself but for everyone in humanity as best as I can, and I feel like I've got plenty to offer in that space. So we're working towards that. We're fresh out of treatment, and I've still got a couple of little health things that I've got to fix up, like with neuropathy, where I can't sort of feel my feet too much at the moment, but that's part of just the side effect of the treatment. So and the heavy metals coming out of my tumors. So just got a little bit of tidying up to do, but we're very much in the area of trying to provide story through speaking and education of what both Rach and I know, and go about life like that. That's the what's on the horizon at this point in time. I don't know if it may change, but that's where we'd like to head in service of ourselves and humanity.
And that anything is possible. So I just love it so much. Luke, I still have loads of questions. We are wrapping up for time, but if we can go over a little bit, I'd like to just tap into a couple of different things. You've obviously looked a lot at nutrition on your health journey. What have you found for you now today to be the optimal diet, food intake?
Yeah, it was quite a trip last year, actually, when my diet actually flipped on its head. I was ketogenic for probably 4 or 5 years, I would say, eating just no carbs and fat and protein. And my diet pretty much is I don't limit myself to being like a vegan at all, but I very much am plant-based, and but everything is more to do with not through the macronutrients but through my microbiome. And so essentially your microbiome, for anyone who doesn't know, is like the mycelium network, and it's the brain of, I think, our whole body. And so it sends all of the nutrients, it talks to all of the different parts of your body and sends everything that needs to go. It creates what it needs to create, in the form of B vitamins and stuff like that, where we supposedly don't get any from, if we're non-meat eating and stuff like that. But I didn't realize how much my ketogenic diet was actually depleting my microbiome, and that's where that live dirty, eat clean comes in, so that I'm not getting the glyphosate in any of the foods because I eat organic. I have goat's milk kefir, so I'm not like I'm not vegan, and so goat's milk kefir is all about the bacteria. I learned that our body doesn't actually, when we go to produce energy, it's not through proteins or our cells actually have mitochondria in them, and you look on Google and it says 1 or 2, but we have anywhere between 200 to 1500, and the mitochondria are actually a bacteria, and in getting energy out of our food, they actually suck in sugar and fat, and that gets turned through one enzymatic process into acetyl-CoA, which then goes through this Krebs cycle process to produce light energy, and that's essentially what we use it throughout our body to break down carbon change and stuff. So we're just like plants. We're very much like that, and so I believe in getting into nature as much as possible and breathing that in, getting our negative ions from the ocean and the waterfalls and the charges of that. Victor Schellberger, the Nikola Tesla of water, has a book called Living Water, and we are 99% water, and so there's this whole synergy and this beautiful magic that very much I've gone on to learn about and really embody as well. I am like a picture of health as far as my body and what I've been through and where I've been to. I've been super sick and super thin and super, toxic, and I've had holes in my gut where I've gone on to leaky gut to have seizures, and the hole in my gut actually stopped me from my first clinical trial, which I am the sole global survivor on. No one else has survived that trial in the world. I actually had to be taken off the trial because I had a hole in my stomach, pretty much in my gut lining, and that was from the cytotoxic drug that I was taking at the time. So I've had to do this whole embodiment and learning at the same time, and I've settled on to not being sort of limited to anything. I try and keep dairy out of my body and meat, because essentially meat takes about 14 hours to process on average through your body, whereas plant food takes about 90 minutes. And obviously meat is the most nutrient dense food that we have, but the way that our body breaks it down, it's very caustic and it becomes very acidic in our body. And so especially with cancer, the tumors use acid and they produce acid to protect themselves. So having an alkaline body is really, really important. And I test my pee every morning to see, I'm trying to be around that 7.35 for my prime alkalinity. And I tried for ages, and I'd have to take a lot of supplements, and I switched over to this diet and it really helped me a lot. I then had to not take so much alkalizing salts, but then when I really practiced the releasing of stress at the end of last year and embodiment after I released that fear, shame and guilt, I could actually become alkaline when I removed the stress from my life without taking any salts and stuff. So it was, I had all of these learnings that were coming in just through testing the embodiment and trying to achieve this go into remission and reconnect with my body. It was, I can't take away my experience. This is just, that's what I've been in and I've seen and I've, been witness to. So that's where I'm at the moment. I'm plant-based, but I don't limit myself to anything. So and I don't place judgment on people for whichever path they choose to put go down diet-wise or anything like that. So
yeah, that's it. It's a journey, isn't it? We've all sort of evolved, and it's a changing process. Luke, what's your number one value as a man?
As a man, value. I think authenticity, if that's a value. I think if you be authentic to yourself and very much as a man, then you it leads you to so many places. I think, that value would be you can just be yourself and be free. And I think it just creates so much space in this life to be of value. It ends up being of value to yourself, so, and to everyone else. So I think probably authenticity would be my key value, I would say. Yeah.
Love it.
On the spot. Yeah.
Well, interestingly enough, it's been probably definitely a common theme through this series, and you're number 91. And all these men that have been on this hero's journey into the heart, they've all stepped into their authenticity and realized the importance of it, and in that found their health and their healing and their peace and abundance and mission and everything else. So definitely an important value.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think that aligns. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, Luke, 2 things left. First of all, where can people find you? And we'll drop all your links below.
I haven't returned to social media yet, but I will for my birthday on Tuesday. Part of my practice and giving me the space was to achieve the treatments that I went through, push my body to what it needed to be done, was just taking or minimizing some of the distractions and aversions that I can have when really needing to focus on myself. So I'm off social media at the moment, but I have a podcast, the Bourne Evolution, which goes through and shares my details of the story. The book isn't out yet, but it's the last chapter I've been able to do. It's funny how synergy happens, because I've been able to write the whole book bar the last chapter, which is me. Now I can write it because I'm going into remission. So very much I can have that finished off, and I've got a few people very much in line to help me through the back end of editing and publishing, because this is my third manuscript. So the learning of the book process has been a big one, but at the moment I'm just doing cancer coaching with people, and that's on to do with that's I'm just a part of my wife's website at the moment, and I have my own link tree on. You can access me through Linktree on my social media as well. So I'll send through the links for the podcast and social media.
Yeah, that's great. I'll put them below. Luke, now, final message to men. Men that have watched this have seen you on the, facing death in the deepest, darkest moments, going through, changes in the evolution of being a man and a husband, and, what the future looks like. What have you got to say to men going through a dark time right now?
Well, I think one of the key points I think that is probably a must for everyone to have, I think all the time, but especially when you're doing it really tough at different moments in your life. I think self-awareness is a key point is a key starting point. I think to be able to become self-aware of what's going on in your life, of what's going on in your body and your mental and emotional health, to have a starting point on where you can go to from there. I went through and did mental health first aid is just on the back end of my mindfulness coaching course, and it really opened my eyes to the lot of mental health issues that were going on, and that I'd actually had myself, and probably would have been clinically diagnosed had I'd gone through and seen a professional psychiatrist or psychology. but that then leads to a lot of substance abuse, which I also had. I had through cannabis, which was a pain relief. It was the only pain relief that I used, but then become substance abuse because I was averting from turning up in life, and I just was trying to numb myself and so on and so forth. And so, without having self-awareness there to be able to see what was going on, everything becomes hard if you're not able to accept and acknowledge that from just seeing it. There's very much lots of options out there for help. I think that talking and sharing to a close friend or a close mate, especially for men, is invaluable. I think that we've really become quite separated from one another, and we live a lot further away from our best friends, and work takes us to different locations, and time stresses and that sort of stuff. So I think really reaching out and talking to people. I know I have a bunch of say 6 men that are all really different in nature and that live in different parts of the country, and I can call them at any time, and if we don't pick up for whatever reason, then we'll just call back at like when it's appropriate and that sort of stuff. And we understand that not all the time we want to talk, but we are there for one another, and it's just turning up and showing up for each other as well, and checking in on mates and friends and family. And so I think for the masculine as well, we've sort of developed this tendency to not to more go inside than willing to share. I think I think that we very much have some room for improvement on that side of the stereotypical, of making it become stereotypical to share and be a little bit more open with how we're feeling or how life is going for us as men. So yeah, I think self-awareness would be play a big part in that, but definitely being able to share and halve your problems just by sharing and talking it out is a big one for men.
Yeah, and of course, you're the living proof that all this stuff that you've been talking about works, because it sent you in the right direction and into remission. So a huge congratulations there, Luke. I'm just so stoked when you told me. I reached out and you're like, yeah, this is the perfect time. I've just had the best news. So I was like, can you say it on the show? And you're like, yeah, it'll be the first time I say it publicly. So I don't know if that's still the case, but so I just want to thank you so much for sharing your journey. And of course, we have to also acknowledge, Rachel, your beautiful wife. So, thank you both so much. And everyone, if you could like, share, subscribe, and make sure check out Luke's podcast. Or is it a podcast or audio?
It's a podcast, audio podcast. Yeah.
And his upcoming book. So thank you, Luke.
Thank you so much for having me and allowing me to contribute and be a part of a wonderful thing that you're doing for humanity, and especially us men as well, to provide that space for us and wisdom.
Cool. Thank you. My pleasure. Everyone, if you could like, share, subscribe, and I'll be back in a couple of days with another episode of Heart Warriors. Bye. Stay on if you want, Luke. Oh, we need a title, don't we? Hang on.